how to find the mean, mode, median, and the range from a grouped frequency table in 249 seconds. Let's go. Guys, in this question, we have absolutely loads to get through, so I'm going to be speaking pretty quickly just to give you a pre-warning. How are we going to find the mode, the range, the mean, and the median from this grouped frequency table? What do we reckon? First of all, our mode, guys, the mode, that one's going to be our most occurring, so it's going to be the one with the highest frequency. We can see here that our frequencies are 3, 7, and 5, so our modal class group is going to be the one which goes with our frequency of 7. We can see that it's our group that 140 is less than our height, which is less than or equal to 150. So that is our mode done. It's going to be that group there. Now, what about our range, guys? The range, that one's actually going to be the nicest. Why? Because it's impossible to calculate. We don't actually have any exact values for our heights. So we're just going to put a cross there, and we're going to recognize the fact that our range is impossible to calculate. What about our mean, guys? This one is definitely the meanest. Let's have a look how to do it. What are we going to do? We can see that we have these two added columns over here, and they're going to be the columns for our midpoint. Let me switch to blue. Our midpoint and our midpoint times by our frequency. Let me explain. So if you remember from our group frequency table, what we did was we found our overall total and then divided that by the sum of our frequencies, the total number of things that we had. In this case, because we don't have any exact values for our height, what we need to firstly do is estimate a value which represents each of the heights in these groups. How do we do that? We're going to use the number which is halfway between the lower bound and the upper bound of each of our intervals. How are we going to find that? Couple of different ways. We could find the difference between the lower and the upper. Here it's 10, halve it gets 5, and add that onto the lower. That would give us 135. The other way to do it is going to be to add the lower bound and the upper bound together. 130 plus 140, that's going to be 270, and then to divide that by 2, again we get 135. So in this case, for our first one, the midpoint is going to be 135. What about the midpoint of 140 and 150? 150 minus 140, that's going to be 10, divided by 2, that's going to be 5, adding that onto 140, that's going to be 145. Doing the exact same thing for 150 and 160, we're going to get 155. Now, the next step, guys, is going to be to do our midpoint times by our frequency to find an estimate for the overall total height. What are we going to do? 3 times by 135, that is going to be 405. 7 times by 145, I won't bother doing that in my head. 7 by 145, 7 times by 145, that is going to be 1015. Next up, we have 5 times by 155, that's going to be 775. Now, adding all of those together, what are we going to have? We're going to have 405 plus 1015 plus 775, and that is going to give us 2195 as our total. Next step, guys, we need to find our total frequency by adding together each of the numbers in this column. 3 plus 7 is 10, plus 5 is 15, so our total frequency is 15. Final step, guys, is going to be to do our total of our midpoint times our frequency divided by our frequency. What are we going to get? We're going to get 2195 divided by 15. Again, not going to do that one in my head. What are we going to get? We're going to get 146.3 reoccurring as our answer, 146.3 reoccurring. So that's going to be our estimate for our mean height. Finally, what about our median? Again, we can't pin down a specific value here, so instead we're going to give the group within which the median sits. What's it going to be? Our total frequency, that's going to be 15. Using our trick to find the which value is going to be the median. 15 plus 1 is 16. 16 divided by 2 is 8. That tells us that our 8th value is going to be our median. Let me write that in. The median is going to be the 8th value, which group is that going to sit within? We can say that it's going to sit within this second group here. Why? Because we have 3 in our first group. Adding 7 to that gets us to 10. So this group takes us from list number 4 to 10. So we can say that it's going to sit within this interval, the lower bound of height being 140. So 140 is less than h, which is less than or equal to 150. That is going to be our median interval, guys. That was a lot to wrap your head around. Feel free to watch again. What are we going to say? We're going to say that our mode was the group 140 to 150. Our mean was 146.3 reoccurring, and our median was 140 to 150. That group there, the 8th value in our table.